Hello.
Hi, Lego. How you doing?
I'm I'm feeling a little bit nervous, but I'm doing okay.
Brilliant.
It's
Where is it you are just now?
I'm in Vancouver.
Vancouver. Awesome. So we're
Yeah.
definitely going way more international. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And we've tapped into that nugget of maybe I should just start normally streaming at 3 o'clock in the morning. We've tapped into the nugget of loads and loads of speakers. Anyway, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. So the Vancouver Pride Parade is actually tomorrow, so I'm getting all hyped up for that by watching everything.
Should should you not be sleeping?
Oh no, it's only 7:20, so I have lots of time.
Oh right, shit, time zones. Duh.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's cool. So awesome. So what are you? I'm guessing you're attending tomorrow.
Yes, yeah, I'm actually most likely going to be in the parade, so
Oh,
I'm quite
brilliant.
excited about that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you could, as with all these things, if you'd like to introduce yourself to the chat, if that's cool.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Lego, um, and my pronouns are she, her, and he, him. I usually just call myself queer, but if we want to get specific, I'm asexual, biromantic, and non-binary. So, yeah, each of those kind of took their own time to figure it out. I actually only figured out the NB part quite recently. So, every day is a discovery.
Brilliant. And every day's a learning thing
Oh yeah.
on our side. But from a Thai point of view, like, and I know it's really easy to sort of hypothesize about it, but what would you say would have been the benefit of Thai had you had some form of campaign like that in your school
Oh,
as you grew up?
it would have been incredibly beneficial, I think. For a very, very long time, like until I was 14, I thought that I was straight because I never had crushes on anyone and I assumed that was just how it worked. And it wasn't until, again, like Guy High said earlier, online, I stumbled across this comic that someone had written about asexuality, and everything just clicked for me. And if a resource like Thai had been available, I think, I guess I'm unique. I never really went through the experience of feeling like broken or like something like I was different from other people, but like discovering asexuality and figuring that out made me feel more complete. And I just I wish that I could have found out about it sooner because it changed things for the better for me.
Brilliant.
And yeah, I will admit when I was in high school, the program was not very good. I did the course that offered the sex education. You could take it in class, but I did it online, and that was a bad idea. There
Okay.
was very little education. Really, it was very abstinence only, and there
Ah,
wasn't any sort of LGBT education. And so it was quite. I guess I was lucky that I had been learning and seeking out this stuff on my own before, because
yeah,
otherwise I wouldn't have figured it out.
yeah. Abstinence only sex education being the least fun of sex education.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So
I mean,
now go
oh
on.
sorry, go ahead.
No, nope, go on.
I actually totally forgot what I was gonna say, so you can go ahead.
Okay, so one of the things I wanted to ask on your sort of journey of discovery, what would you say is the most, and I don't want this to sound too like a job interview, but what is the most like sort of significant hurdle that you feel like you've had to overcome?
Um, I guess there's probably two that I can think of. The first was just kind of being out in an academic environment because I was not out at all in high school. There were other people, not in my grade, there were a lot of younger kids that were out, but in my grade, I felt like it wasn't very safe, and there were, guys in gym class throwing around faggot and stuff, and that just made, I didn't feel safe doing it. But since going to university, especially since I'm at a little bit more of a liberal institution, I've been able to kind of be open about my sexuality and my gender and that sort of stuff. And it's really benefited me, I think. And I've also been able to meet so many more people who are like me, or even who aren't like me, but just who kind of understand what it's like. And I guess the other kind of significant hurdle that I faced was actually coming out to my family. So I came out to my older brother back in 2015, and he was the only one who knew for 2 years, because I knew that my parents would be okay with it, but I just had this like irrational fear.
Yeah, this wee niggle in the back of your head that says, nah,
yeah,
maybe not.
Like we'd had entire conversations about like LGBT rights and stuff, and it was just, my brain was just working against me. And then things kind of ended up, I didn't really end up getting very much of a choice in that matter, although I suppose I kind of did. I took I mainly present female, and I took a girl with me to my prom when I graduated, and she was wearing a dress and I was wearing a tuxedo, and I had a bow tie that matched her dress. So it was very much like we were going as dates. And that kind of, my dad sent my grandma pictures, and my grandma responded with, "Oh, is that her girlfriend?" And then my dad said, "Okay, let's talk about this." So it was kind of, it kind of just happened, but it's,
in
I guess that's
in a
something
kind
that,
of wonderful way. It happened. There wasn't like a sit down where you had
yeah.
to, you had to
And
work yourself up towards it. It just happened, which is kind of how it should be.
yeah, and I guess like it's still something that I'm kind of working on. I'm not very good at opening myself up about my sexuality to other people. So with my family, that's still a bit of an issue, but it's kind of, I'm taking it one step at a time, because I know now, and like even though I always knew, but I know now that they're okay with it.
Brilliant. And I like how you say that you're a wee bit shy about telling people as you announce it to a stream of over 100 people.
Yeah, but these are internet people. They're not real.
Yeah, they don't really exist. Cool. So, I mean, if it's all right with you, I'm going to ask the signature line is, what do you think the potential is? Can you see a group in Vancouver, learning from Thai and basically starting a Thai group and really, like, really expanding the whole Thai message?
I
Do you see it happening? Could it
ab-
happen?
Absolutely. The only thing that's different here in Canada is that we don't have a national education. It's
Ah,
all decided on a provincial basis. So,
that's
for
interesting.
example, I'm in British Columbia, where the provincial government, the NDP, which I guess would be probably equivalent to Labour or the SNP, depending
Okay.
on who's talking,
Yep.
but they introduced a policy recently called SOGI, which is sexual orientation and gender identity. And it is basically, there's a outline for, or I guess almost a directive for teaching people about sexuality and gender identity. And it's not just about LGBT stuff, it's specifically for everyone. So it's for kids that are straight, it's for kids that are queer, it's for kids that are cis, it's for kids that are trans. And it's like all the schools were kind of already required to address bullying and stuff, but now provincially they have to make sure that the code of conduct includes the correct behaviors kind of related to SOGI, and they have to make sure that their sex ed fits with that as well. And there's been a whole bunch of protests against it, but I'm a music student, but at university we have a music education program, so I'm friends with a lot of people who are going to be teachers in the future.
Yeah.
So they've been going to a lot of rallies in support of that recently, because it's already passed, but
there's
it's
that
still,
sort of before
yeah,
implementation, it's not the norm yet,
yeah,
and people are looking for something to complain about.
yeah. And it's sort of, so I think like in BC, it's absolutely something. I mean, it's kind of started already, but it's absolutely something that we could do. But then in Alberta, which is just next door, they recently had a provincial election. They re-elected a conservative government,
Oh,
and
they're always fun.
yeah, and they are bringing back a bill which was introduced, I think, 7 years ago. I don't remember if it passed, but no, it wouldn't have passed. But basically, they're rolling back protections for LGBT students. Basically,
Sure.
they have this policy. I don't know if it's passed yet or if it's just something that they're pushing, but it's if a child is like if someone's child is in a GSA at their high school, it's no longer there's no longer kind of that confidentiality between the students and the teachers and the students and the counselors. Um, they they basically they're required to inform the parents if their child joins a GSA. And they say that it's because of stuff like field trips, because that way, the parents know the forms that they have to sign. But we know it's not about that.
Yeah.
And
No,
it absolutely, like it's really unfortunate because it previously Alberta did have an NDP government as well. And then just very recently this all came back, and it is just like it's right in the heart how like this is going to get people hurt.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, I think that if we did sort of have a more national education policy, which I don't know if that'll happen because our constitution is very weird, but if there was a bigger consensus on education across the country, then we could make sure that things like that don't happen. And the things like what we have with SOGI in BC, that could be introduced to more places. I think Ontario also has a similar project, although they also just elected a bunch of Tories, so I'm not sure how that's going.
Oh, what's going on, Canada? Come
Right?
on. But no, that's brilliant. Thanks very much for giving us a wee bit more of a idea of what and how Canada's run. Is one of those things that I run a political blog, but I'm very much UK focused, and it's always interesting to hear. Like I didn't know that education was a provincial thing, and
So is healthcare actually. It's very interesting. Yeah.
That's
So
weird.
we still have universal health care,
Yep.
but coverage varies depending on the province. So again, in BC, we have specific, I think BC and Ontario, which it's these two all the time, but we have coverage for certain trans stuff. I don't know if it's hormones or surgery specifically, but it's possible to get coverage for gender reaffirming actions. But in other parts of the country, that's not something that's available. Like, we have the broad outline of our health care, which is, it's not single payer, but it's public.
Yeah.
But then when you want to get into specifics, it kind of wildly varies. And like recently, actually, one of the big issues was there was only, I don't know about the Maritimes, but from like if you were out west, there's one clinic, the closest clinic to go to for bottom reassignment surgery is in Montreal, which is in Quebec, which is a 5 and a bit hour plane ride away from here.
Jeez, right, okay.
And recently, like
It's a bit
probably
of a hike.
a couple days ago, it was announced that Vancouver is actually going to be opening up a clinic as well that will provide that service. And it's such a relief for so many people, because even not even people that live in BC, but people that live in Alberta and Saskatchewan, that's still closer for them than going all the way out east. And it's cheaper for them. And it's just, that's something that was decided provincially. So again, that was our government that decided to pull that up. So
Yeah, jeez.
it's all very silly, but
Yeah, but I mean, it's good to hear that Vancouver's getting a clinic. So like, people don't need to travel fucking ages, and that's a whole other thing. People want to be able to go, and it's almost in the comfort of your own home. Like that would be like, I don't know, me traveling down to London to get something,
exactly.
and it would feel alien and not.
Yeah, and it's the cost is like astronomical.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
So
cost
it's just,
for potential accommodation and the rest of it.
yeah, especially because like the recovery time, you wouldn't be able to fly right back afterwards, so you'd
Yeah.
have to arrange for a place to stay.
Yeah, and that then adds a whole other raft of issues and cost and all sorts.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
so sorry, in the chat, Panda Bubble did say Canadians have to pay for ambulances. It's weird. We don't always have to pay for ambulances. It depends on whether or not I'm trying to remember the word, but basically, if you actually need the ambulance, you don't have to pay for it. But if you call the ambulance and say, you would have been able to make it to the hospital on your own, then you have to pay for it. So it's kind of weird, but that also might be a political thing.
I get it. I find that interesting though, because obviously in Scotland, I don't think anyone pays for ambulances at all.
Yeah.
So when you hear about the sort of the American left, talking about the glory of Canadian healthcare.
Oh, I know.
It's like
It's not that good, honestly.
They're after that, and I don't want to be disparaging to the Canadian Health Service, but if they're after that basic tier of some form of universal healthcare, it's just quite an interesting thing that like that's the Inspire. I mean, I dare say that in Canada the left probably aspire to a version of our healthcare. And even our healthcare is not that great. So
and actually, I've been talking about the NDP a little bit, but the universal healthcare was introduced by Tommy Douglas in Saskatchewan, who was a member of the NDP, and it started in Saskatchewan and then it spread across the whole country. So the left is very much pushing for more inclusive healthcare.
Yeah.
And there's more accessible resources in general, but unfortunately, first of all, half the stuff is provincial, half the stuff is federal, and then second of all, there's 3 parties and none of them like getting along. So
yeah. Cool. If it's okay with you, I'm afraid there's a few other people who are desperate to call in for chat.
Sure.
But
I was probably going on a little bit, but
no, we absolutely loved it, and I think like the whole chat is still a buzz with people talking about it. So again, thanks very much for being in the chat and
oh yeah, it was
being
a
part of the
pleasure.
stream, and it's even more thanks very much for calling in. It's brilliant, and Well, we'll see how we go. We're currently on we're still about 30 quid off of reaching 1,100. So let's see if we can do that. Okay, that is the goal.
Crossed.
Now, bearing in mind we are actually a wee bit over it based on the cheers and the everything else. The subs alone, Jesus. But let's see if we can get the bar up a wee bit. So. Again, thank you very much for that, Lego, and we'll chat shortly. I'll see you in the chat.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
And have a great time at Vancouver Pride tomorrow.
Thank you.
Brilliant. See you later.
See ya.
Bye bye.